Hey guys, this is Steven here with another video on how to play some of my favorite puzzles. This one is on KenKens, also known as TomToms or Calcu-dokus. These are very similar to Sudoku, but it involves a little bit of basic math. The puzzles can be a 4x4 grid, a 5x5, a 6x6, and so on all the way up to 9x9s. In this example, I'll show a 7x7 grid. Like in Sudoku, each row and column must contain each digit without repeating. So in this example, each row must contain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and each column must contain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 without repeating. The difference, unlike Sudoku, is instead of having a 3x3 subsection, there are unique outline sections that must equal the indicated number using a specific math function. So adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. So if you look at this, for example, these two boxes would add together to 3. These 3 boxes or cells would multiply together to get 24. So it could be, for instance, 6, 4, and a 1, or 2, 3, and a 4, and so forth. These two cells you'd subtract and you would get 5 as the answer there. So as far as the tips and tricks, what I'll do is I'll just start to solve this puzzle a little bit just so you can kind of see how it unravels. It is very similar to Sudoku, so I would first recommend learning how to do those. They're a little bit easier because they don't involve math. I don't think the math gets too crazy and wild with any KenKens, but if you do any 9x9s, the numbers can get a little large. So when doing these KenKens, start off easier. Start off with the smaller grids, the 4x4s, the 5x5s, and get comfortable with those first. But as far as what I do to solve these, the first thing I do is I look for the free cells. And what I mean by that is the real easy ones. This one, for example, has to be a 4. And I look for others. Here you can see a 1. It's just a single cell and they give you the hint there. It's just to help you on your way. Now this is an easier puzzle just to show you guys as an example. Not all of them give you freebies, but if they're there, take them and start there because that's the quickest and easiest cells to solve. The next thing I look for is single possible combinations or solutions. And so what I mean by that is if we look at a 2-cell Bach function of a 3 plus, like what we have here, it can only be a 1 and a 2. It can't be anything else. But we don't know where the 1 and 2 is, right? I don't know if the 2 belongs in this cell or in this cell. So I'm just simply going to notate it. Because what that does is that helps me along this row, knowing that a 2 or 1 can't be in these 2 because they have to be in one of these. Right, we look elsewhere. Here's a 13 plus. That has to be a 7 and a 6. That's the largest sum that's possible. If we were doing a 9x9, the largest sum possible would be 17, right? 9 plus 8. But here, a 7x7, a 13 is the largest sum. Here we look at a 6 subtraction function. That's got to be a 1 and a 7. So we indicate that there. And then we look at a 14x. We know it's got to be a 2 and a 7. There's no other possible outcome there. So again, we don't know which cell is going to be a 2 and which cell is going to be a 7. So we just simply pencil mark in and come back to that later once we figure out some of the other cells. So other important 2-cell functions to know is if you see a 4 plus, it's got to be a 1 and a 3. 2x is going to be a 1 and 2. And so forth. There's several ones out there. Here's just a few to know. The next thing I look at is the 3-cell box functions. So common ones you'll see is if there's an L shape with a 3x, you know it's got to be a 3, 1, and 1. An L shape with a 4 plus or 2x has got to be a 2, 1, and 1, and so forth. Here are a couple other common ones. So here we look at a 3-cell 1 of 24. It could be 6, 4, and 1, or 2, 3, and 4. But we know there can't be a 6 here. So that leaves us with the 2, 3, 4. So we'll pencil mark those in. 2, 3, 4. And here we know it can't be a 2 because we already have a 2 in one of these cells within this column. So it can be only a 3 and 4. And you can see how this helps because now we have these two cells left, and it's got to be either a 1 and 5. Well, guess what? A 5 doesn't divide into 3, so that has to be the 1. And this has to be a 3 then. 3 divided by 1 equals your 3. Now you'll notice it doesn't matter which order it goes in. It just takes 3 divided by 1 in this instance, right? If you do 1 divided by 3, you get a fraction, and that's not how the KenKens work. So it doesn't matter which order it's in. Here, this must be a 5 because that's the last digit in that row that's not been entered. 5 plus 7 equals 12, so we know that that's a 7. And here we look at this top row. We know we're left with a 3, 5, and 7. Well, 7 and 5 don't divide into 2, so this has to be a 3 and a 6. I'm sorry, yeah, so 3, 5, 6, and 7 are missing up here. So this has to be 3 and 6. Well, 3 is already in this column, so this has to be the 6. That has to be the 3, leaving the 5 and 7 here. But we know in this column actually it can't be a 7 because we already have it down here. So this has to be the 5, and that has to be the 7. And that 7 now took away the 7 possibility in this cell. So this has to be a 1, that has to be a 7. And so you can start to see how the puzzle would unfold and crack, right? So now with a 5 subtraction earlier, it could be a 7 and a 2 or 6 and 1. But now there's a 7 in that column. So we know it can't be a 7. So it has to be a 6 and a 1. So we pencil that in, 6 and a 1. Well, the 1's already in that row, so that actually has to be a 6. And that's the 1, making this cell up here 2. That's a 1, and so forth. And so the other thing to realize is that 5s and 7s are very unique because they're prime numbers, and there's not a lot of cells that can be divided into by 5s or 7s. And so if you can reveal where all the 5s and 7s are, that helps greatly. Sometimes 3s are real unique too, and 9s, but specifically 5s and 7s. As you do these more and more and more, you'll see that those are very important numbers to discover. And then again, with this puzzle being very similar to Sudoku, you can use a lot of the same strategies. So that's about it. I don't want to finish this puzzle just for the sake of time. You don't want to take up your whole afternoon. So it's a lot of fun. If you enjoy Sudokus, I definitely would encourage you to try these ones out as well. Start off with the easier ones, the smaller ones, the 4x4s, the 5x5s, because as you get into the bigger ones, the 9x9s can be time consuming. They're tougher puzzles for sure. So that's it. If you liked what you saw here in this video, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Thanks everyone. Have a good night.